I'm excited about those. I have a lot of another star-studded cast. I think we're going to get started this morning with Clark Merkley from BootUp. Lynn, you want to do a quick intro?
Yes, we have a special treat for everyone this morning. We are going to hear from Clark Merkley, who is the executive director at BootUp PD, a fantastic organization that has done tremendous work in the K-5 space for computer science education, supporting teachers all across the country. We're very happy that he's here with us this morning to give us an overview of their project with Amazon Future Engineer. Clark, welcome this morning.
Morning, Clark.
Thanks, Lynn and Brian. Great to be with you today. And even though I can't see all the participants from around the country and around the world, welcome. Great to have you join us. So I'm going to share my screen here and well, if I can, let's see. Here we go.
While you're doing that, I just want to remind folks, if they need the closed captioning feature, I've pinned the link to the closed captioning link that you'll have to click on, and it'll be a separate tab that you open, and you can adjust as needed. Clark, I'm going to leave, and you have the stage. I'll come back in just a little bit for Q&A.
Great, sounds good. Brian, can you see my screen okay?
I can.
Excellent. So I'll tell you a little bit about BootUp Professional Development. As Lynn mentioned, we're a nationwide nonprofit that have been doing work in the elementary space for about the last 6 years. And one of the exciting things about the work that we do is that it's giving students exposure to computer science and experience coding, doing algorithmic thinking, and helping to integrate computer science across the curriculum. And we do that primarily by empowering their teachers. So we find that when we can get the teachers trained and excited, that they do incredibly well at the elementary level with their students. And as Liz mentioned, I'm the executive director of BootUp Professional Development. And we've reached, over the last 6 years, about 170,000 students. And as I'll talk about in a minute with our Amazon Future Engineer partnership, that number will probably be over 1 million students by the end of the 3-year engagement that we have with school districts. So what we do is we work with full district implementations, where we work with the district administration to design a custom plan for that district. So we're addressing the needs that they have in that district. We're helping that district close equity gaps. And we're a Computer Science for All initiative, which means we want all students to get computer science during the school day. And when they do that, and they can incorporate this new literacy into everything that they do in language arts and mathematics, art, science, music, they really find joy in their work. So about a little over a year ago, we started talking with Amazon Future Engineer about doing some work with them. And they've agreed to sponsor our work, and we are in the process right now of soliciting applications from school districts around the country that would like to participate. And it applies equally to large urban school districts, suburban districts, and rural districts. And the primary focus of these is to reach areas that are primarily underserved and underrepresented. So districts that may not have the opportunity to introduce computer science at the elementary level, we want to give them that opportunity through this partnership. And a little bit about Amazon Future Engineer. Some of you may be familiar with it, but it's a K-16 initiative. And at the elementary level, they're introducing students to coding, computational thinking, robotics, and other things that will help them gain competency in computer science. And they also have programs at the middle school level and at the high school level. And for college students, they offer internships and some scholarships, and also the opportunity to get some career guidance as they move into the professional ranks. So a great investment in the computer science community. So I just wanted to let you know that right now we are in the process of taking applications. We have already reviewed and awarded some districts, and those districts will be announced next week. And as you hear that announcement come out, you will recognize many of these districts. They're some of the largest in the country, and some with some of the greatest needs in terms of either Title I elementary schools or high free lunch, places where we can really make a great impact. So if you get a chance, you can go to this link, the link at the bottom of the page there, even to submit your intent to apply. And then we look forward to seeing your application by the end of the month. So we'll be reviewing those that come in by the end of the month. So I'm going to go back into the session with Brian and Lynn, and if there's any questions, you've got a way to contact me there, my email address, and also the link to apply. But we would be more than happy to talk to you about getting your district involved in this great elementary computer science initiative.
Thank you so much for that, Clark. I am looking at the chat, and there's been some requests to receive more information. So Brian and I are happy to help make those connections and support this work that you're doing and the work that our Georgia universities and schools would like to do. So Brian and I have talked about this a lot. We're more than happy to help and support any schools in Georgia that want to do this. We'll find a way to support and collaborate or partner with them on this.
Great. Yeah, and we've had helped us with some schools in Georgia already. We've done some work with the Leadership Preparatory Academy in DeKalb County, which is the 100% African-American charter school, part of the DeKalb County Public Schools. And we've also got some work coming up with another school in the Atlanta area. So thank you, Brian, for your support. And yeah, we'd love to have Georgia districts and other districts apply for this.
We have a question from the chat, Clark. Someone wants to know about the privacy issues. She said she was awarded the scholarship for the school, but due to wording of the EUA, she was told she couldn't use it. Do you have some ways of working around that? Have you dealt with that before?
She would get in touch with me. She may be talking about something other than our partnership with Amazon in the elementary, but yeah, I'll drop my information in the chat, both my contact information and the link to the sponsorship application as well. I'll drop that down in the chat.
Excellent.
Okay, one other question, Clark. One other question. Can you share with us a little bit of what the landscape looks like right now from your perspective in Georgia? Are there any schools in rural Georgia that have already engaged here in Georgia?
You know, not to my knowledge, not with our work, but Brian would probably have a better idea of that. What we tend to see in different states is that there are superstars. There are little pockets of great teachers that are doing wonderful things in their schools, but it's not across the board. It tends to be one particular teacher or a handful of teachers, and so we'd love to see districts that do this on a district basis because it really makes it more sustainable.
Okay, so before you go, what's that link to the Amazon future information? Can you put that up again?
Well, let me put it up real quick, and then I'll drop it in the chat as well.
Perfect.
So there's the link. For those that would like to go there, you can either apply, start an application, or just submit an intent to apply. And that way you get in our ecosystem so that we can notify you of the status of things. And then my email address if you have any questions.
Okay. Just scanning quickly to see if there are questions. Oh, one more from Kathlina. What are the outcomes that are required for engaging in the grant?
You know, there are no particular outcomes. What we're hoping, though, is that districts will jump in and do this on a pretty intensive basis, meaning not just one school or not just one grade, but really make a commitment to computer science education at the elementary level. We don't require full district participation. In fact, some of the districts that have been awarded will be sort of doing a pilot with a number of schools and then ramping up over the course of the 3-year commitment. But what we will do is do some research on teacher competency and self-efficacy and give that information back to the district. And then to the extent the district wants to do any student outcome research, we can work with you on that. The privacy issues and the research issues get a little more complicated, as everyone knows.
Okay. Okay, great. Well, again, really appreciate you taking the time this morning to share that information with us, and we'll be in touch. Looks like we can connect some folks to this information and with you, and we'll take it from there.
Great, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Clark.
Thanks, Clark.
Cheers. All right. Brian, I think we're ready to move on to the next segment. I also wanted to remind folks of just a couple of other housekeeping information. If you are using social media, if you're on Twitter or Instagram, we are using a summit hashtag that I'm going to post in the chat. It's Constellations Summit. If you post on Twitter or on Instagram, we will be sure to retweet your tweet. And the hashtag is Constellations Summit. Okay. The next part is an interview with some amazing females in the computer science education space. We're going to bring them on to the stage in just a minute here. I believe they're joining us now.
Good morning, Dr. Margulieux.
Hey, Brian.
Good morning, Lauren.
Good morning.
All right. We are.
Is Jamie here as well? Here we go.
See.
Hi, Jamie.
Hi, how are you? I don't know why my video isn't showing up.
It is now.
Oh, good. Okay.
Hi, Jamie.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well, thank you.
I'm going to drop off. I'll see you all at Q&A.
See you,
Okay.
Brian.
Thanks, Brian. All right. Well, good morning to the both of you. So great to have you on with us this morning. We had a great day yesterday, and we're so thrilled that you're joining us today. This segment is featuring the both of you because we're here to talk about your programs that you've initiated and are leading at your institutions to help broaden participation in computing, but also to help engage and prepare teachers to teach computer science as well across the nation. These are phenomenal projects that we want to talk about that you are leading. But first, I wanted to formally introduce the both of you, and I want to let folks know that Dr. Margulieux is an assistant professor of learning sciences at Georgia State University here in Georgia. She received her doctorates from Georgia Tech. Yay! In engineering psychology, the study of how humans interact with technology. Her research interests are in educational technology and online learning, particularly for computing education. She's coordinating an initiative in Georgia State's teacher preparation programs to integrate computing into pre-service teacher learning. training in all disciplines to broaden participation and provide additional teaching strategies. You also direct the computer science endorsement to certified teachers to offer standalone computing courses. Welcome, Lauren.
Thank you for
being here. And then I want to introduce Jamie Payton. She is an associate professor and chairperson of the Department of Computer and Information Sciences at Temple University. Her research interests include pervasive computing systems for smart health and well-being, broadening participation in computing, and evidence-based approaches to improving computer science education. She is the director of the STARS Computing Core, which I really want to hear more about today. This is a national alliance of over 50 colleges and universities with the mission to develop department, faculty, and student leadership in broadening participation of underrepresented groups in computing. This is a great program. The STARS has engaged over 2,500 college students. And as co-founder of the International Conference on Research on Equity and Sustained Participation in Engineering, Computing, and Technology, which is called RESPECT, Jamie has helped establish a scholarly venue that brings together researchers in computer science. And we are very thrilled to have the both of you here this morning.
Really glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
When I reached out to the both of you, I just knew that if I could get the both of you on, that you would add so much to the program. Your voices mean so much to me, professionally and personally. You're just fantastic women to work with and partner with. So I'm super excited. So we're here to talk about your programs, but in general, there have been so many events, so many things that have been happening around us. And, the pandemic, the calls for justice, for crimes against people of color, and the distance, the separation that has occurred with our work accommodations. How have you all been able to adjust? First of all, I just wanted to touch base with you and see how have you all been doing? How have you been able to adjust to these changes so far?
Do you want to go ahead, Jamie?
Sure. I think first to address calls for justice in light of violence against Black people and oppression of Black people in this country, it's really centered and emphasized some of the work that I've been doing with the STARS Computing Core. We've been focused for a number of years on diversity, equity, and inclusion, but it really brings to the forefront the importance of anti-racism in this work, and to make a strong commitment to furthering anti-racism and all the work that we do in computer science education, and how important that is in movements like CS for All. So that's something that has really been on my mind in recent weeks, and has really been a focus of what we're doing. In terms of a pandemic, wow. Yeah, continuing the work, I think we're very fortunate to be in this profession, in these positions where a lot of the activities that we can do can continue to take place remotely for those of us in privileged positions where we have access to equipment and to internet access. But also at the forefront of my mind is thinking about equitable access. And so that's something that we've been shifting our work to focus on, as well as to think about how can we ensure that students and faculty can have access to computer science learning experiences and support for facilitating computer science learning experiences. So yeah, definitely been an interesting time, and really has brought home the importance of equity in all the work that we do.
Absolutely. Agreed. How about you, Lauren?
I'd absolutely echo what Jamie is saying, that, it's easy to get tired in this space. especially when you feel like sometimes people aren't listening, whether that's for advocating for computing for all. A lot of people sometimes resist that, and advocating for being mindfully anti-racist in the curriculum that we teach and who we choose to teach it and the teachers that we support, and sort of preparing them to take those values back to their classroom. So it has been very motivating, terrible, but motivating to push forward and make sure that we're keeping these ideals in mind as we go forward. For the pandemic, I'm hoping that it's a blessing in disguise, because as you might have heard, universities are struggling a little financially. So at Georgia State, what that means is that we have to make sure that our students are being served. So we have to have the required courses covered, but there's less space for electives that don't have many students in them. So there's less space for electives. And hopefully that means we can advocate for students taking the computer science education classes that I teach as electives in their program, getting them a little interested in it, and then carry on through the entire program, hopefully.
That's fantastic. I want to hone in on something that you said about really bringing in good values, and especially values of anti-racism, so that teachers can take that back into the classroom. And the importance of that is so significant. So thank you for stating that. Jamie, I wanted to dive a little bit deeper in the STARS Computing Core program. And I just would like to ask you to tell us a little bit more about that and the different components of it. How does the collaboration with K-12 schools and industry increase access to CS?
Sure. I'd love to talk about STARS for an hour and a half or 3 days or however long. It's work that I really love doing. The STARS Computing Core is a national alliance that's funded by the National Science Foundation for broadening participation of underrepresented groups in computing. And we're specifically an alliance of colleges and universities who buy into that mission. And what we're aiming to do is to build capacity, to ignite action, and foster community among college, faculty, and students who will take action to broaden participation in computing. So we have a faculty learning community where faculty engage in learning more about equity, diversity, and inclusion and best practices that they can apply in their college classrooms and in their departments. And primarily those faculty are responsible for working with cohorts of college students and providing them with training and support and empowering them to go out into the community and use their computer science knowledge to have an impact. And usually what people choose to do is to engage in K-12 computer science education. So these college students are amazing. They can have a fantastic amount of impact. They're great teachers, they're excited, they're great peer mentors, and high school and middle school students see them as potential role models and as near peers. And so a lot of times what's happening is these college students that are equipped with information about implicit bias and stereotype threat, and also some pedagogical strategies for teaching computer science to K-12. And they'll go out and they'll lead after school initiatives, summer camps, Saturday academies. But more recently, we've really been engaged in formal learning opportunities and working with teachers to discover what they need in classrooms and helping to support those needs. And so sometimes that means just being an extra pair of hands to prepare a lesson. It can mean being a classroom coach for the students during the learning day. It can mean being a TA outside of classroom time, perhaps through online connections. And so these college students really bring, I think, a lot of value in terms of providing a community and different types of support for teachers and students in K-12.
Wow. Well, I'm wondering though, how can we make that, transferable and scalable, I guess, in local systems? What are your thoughts about this being a model for local leaders to engage in, or perhaps consider initiating similar efforts in their regional or school system?
Yes, I think that would be amazing. We do have some results that show that STARS does have positive impacts on the students that participate. So I think it would be an excellent model to replicate. One of the things that we've done with STARS is try to make it flexible and generalizable, so that our students aren't trained in one particular type of learning activity or one particular type of, roadshow in a box. Instead, we provide them with generalized tools that they can use to work with teachers and students. And so the best way, if you're interested in replicating this model, is to reach out to STARS. We can certainly support you in those efforts. You can connect with a local college or university. They can launch a chapter if they don't already have one. Again, we have 50 colleges and universities that are participating in STARS, so you might be able to find an existing chapter and partner with them. And if not, this is a really excellent program, not just for the K-12 students, but also for the college students who participate. There are a lot of benefits for them as well. So there would be value for local colleges and universities to start chapters locally as well. One other thing that I'll say is that, Lauren mentioned opportunities that are brought by the pandemic. One opportunity that we've seen is the opportunity to serve schools that we typically wouldn't otherwise be able to connect with and partner with, especially rural schools, right? These college students have often, very packed college course schedules, and then they sometimes have part-time jobs, and then they want to participate in STARS. And the transportation and logistics sometimes gets in the way. But with more and more support for connecting online to teachers and schools and to students, it can be, made possible to connect with partners that otherwise, we wouldn't be able to establish relationships with.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you for that. Lauren, I want to turn to you because you are leading a teacher endorsement program at Georgia State University. Can you describe what that looks like? What is that program and how it's progressing? What do you focus on? Is it just increasing content knowledge for teachers? What's it about?
And so to provide just a little bit of background knowledge, there's sort of two ways in Georgia that you can get certified. You can go through a teacher prep program offered by a university or a regional education service agency, or sometimes actually maybe not for profit. But there's, a few ways of getting that. Or you can take the test, which will add on computer science to an existing teaching certificate. So you still have to go through a teacher program at some point, but you can sort of add on computer science. And that's what our program does. It's not to prepare you to pass the test, but the test in my mind is for people who have already been teaching computer science, who know a lot about computer science, who really just need to demonstrate their knowledge. Our program is for people who have never touched computer science in their life. And the endorsement in Georgia is a P through 12 endorsement, which at first I thought was a curse, but is a little bit of a blessing for our program, because we have to prepare teachers for kindergarten through 12th grade. And what you're teaching in those grades are obviously very different. But it does allow us to say, all right, we're going to spend the whole first semester, it's a year-long program, one course in the fall, one in spring, and two in summer. We're going to spend the whole first semester on elementary level computer science. So it's a great opportunity to say, if you don't know anything about computer science, don't worry, that's where we're starting. And then in the spring, we ramp it up to computational thinking, block-based programming, sort of what you teach at a middle level. I should also say the program's geared toward in-service teachers, so we try to keep it very, it's not content light, but we try to keep it very concise in the fall and spring semesters while teachers have their own jobs and classes to teach. And then we ask the teachers to give up their summer, basically, to take a programming class and a computer science instructional methods class. And so that's a pretty intense summer for the 7 weeks that we have summer classes. Yeah. And we do focus on computer science content because we're working with teachers who have an endorsement, or not an endorsement, but a certification in another content area. They know how to be teachers. They know better than I do how to be teachers. So we want to focus on the content, and then through the activities and assignments that we do in class, we have them figure out, sort of as a group and, with support, how they'll teach this to their class. So the assignments are to help them learn the content as well as think through how they're going to teach it in their class. Yeah. And that's how we sort of structured our program, to build upon their prior knowledge as well as give them the new information that they need.
So you've adapted it really to the needs of many teachers who are being asked to enter into this field to teach it without really any experience, and helping them be successful going through this program. What have you seen working well, and what are your plans to, grow the endorsement program?
And so when we designed the program, this was our idea, that we would have the teachers use their expertise in teaching. And I'm glad that it really worked well. In the discussion boards and in the conversations, the fall and spring semester were always supposed to be online. Summer was supposed to be in person, which it's not, but that's okay. But I see them talk a lot, and they get ideas from each other a lot, and they help each other improve. And so I really like that aspect of the community of it, especially online classes. They can often be very, independent and not antisocial, but certainly not social. So I really like that they're talking to each other and building upon each other's ideas, because they're often in different districts. They don't really have someone in their district to talk to about these things. Yeah. And in terms of growing, what I'd really like to see, well, first, for the in-service teachers, we're working on different ways of not just classes, but smaller segments that teachers can complete at more convenient intervals for them, whatever that may be, whether it's shorter or whether it's longer. So we're working on alternative ways of providing that instruction and that feedback and assessment. And one of the things I want to see is us really push into our pre-service teacher programs, so that when students are graduating with their certificate in English or math or science, that they also have a certification in computer science. Because often in Georgia schools, there's not enough demand for computer science that you'd hire a computer science teacher that can only teach computer science. At least that's where we are right now. So I'd really like to see them coming out with this ability to teach both.
Yeah. Well, certainly, even with the great work that the both of you are doing, I still get a sense that we need more. That we're all doing really great work. Your projects are fantastic, but we need more. We need more partnerships like STARS, Forges. We need more endorsement programs across the nation. What is your advice, or what would you recommend for us to kind of come together on these and pull together our efforts to enhance programs like the ones that the both of you are leading? What would you recommend?
And I think we're in a weird spot right now, because you can't have national level like endorsements or programs, because each state requires something a little different for what they require for CS certification or what they require for students actually taking computer science classes. And so what I've chosen to focus on right now is really understanding how to prepare teachers to teach computer science. And then once everyone gets sort of to the same tier, like, you know, after all the politics and everything settles and we have the same sort of requirements across the nation, then we can say, okay, this is how you do it. And then I'm hoping, you know, in that 3 or so, hopefully, years from now, that we could really just, you know, hit the ground running.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm.
Any
thoughts, Jamie?
Yeah, I would agree with what Lauren's saying, that when it comes to education, working locally first is often the best strategy to understand the context of what's needed locally, what teachers need, what their students need, and how you can create programs and systems and teacher professional development and education opportunities that align with standards and practices at the local level, I think is the way to go. I think there are some, although certification can't necessarily be a national effort, there are existing organizations that work with local groups to make, for example, state level change. ESEP is one of those. And so if you have the opportunity as an educator or a researcher to get involved with one of those groups like ESEP, I think it's really valuable to have your local expertise and context taken into consideration. Policy has to be implemented, right? And policy is implemented locally. And so your voice is needed and your context is important. So I would encourage people to get involved with those groups as much as possible.
Yeah, great advice. So Brian and I are both on the ESEP group for Georgia, along with several others, and I think it's a great advice, great recommendation. I wanted to shift gears just a little bit to talk about some greater impacts in terms of your work and the current situation in our country right now. Some of our own colleagues, we've all talked with our colleagues over the last couple of months, and some of them have commented they would like to envision not going back to the way things were in terms of the inequities that we clearly have, that clearly have surfaced at greater levels now. There are more evidence due to the pandemic, due to the injustices and the current, just the recent murders of Black people. What are your views on how the CS Ed community can play a role in ensuring that these efforts to broaden participation don't get pulled to the wayside, don't get just, forgotten, and that we stay laser focused on issues that affect marginalized populations? What role should, the CS community have?
I think an active one, right? I think we should take an active role in addressing issues of racism and injustice that happens broadly in our society, and also within our own community. As much as I love computer science and the computing community, we do see bias even within our own community. And when you feel, when you're looking to make a change, just as Lauren mentioned before, for teacher credentialing and certification, often we have to look locally and we have to make changes locally. We have to make changes within the computing community that address bias, that are anti-racist, that look at systems and structures that are oppressive, And that includes in our educational systems for K-12, for college, and in our tech workforce. So I think those are essential things to keep a focus on. How do we keep laser focused? I think we have to make commitments publicly, announce them, and hold ourselves accountable for them. You've probably seen many statements from different organizations basically asserting that they stand against racism. We need those statements to make commitments, and we need people to follow through on them and to see action. And I think there are several great examples out there. If you look at the Black in Computing statement, for example, there's a call to action there. So if you are interested in what types of calls to actions you can see, that's an excellent example. So I think making a commitment and holding ourselves accountable as a community for those commitments is what we need to be doing.
Well said. Well said, Jamie.
Yeah, I absolutely think that's a fabulous idea, is making public commitments. And then I just wanted to build upon what you said at the end, which is hold people accountable. So I was thrilled to see that the CSTA standards, one of the 5 standards is inclusive teaching. And so that's, you know, the same level as sort of content, major content areas in computing. And so I think we need to hold programs accountable that they're treating it just as importantly as they are the content. And I feel like a lot of times it's easy to say, well, we do this and we do this and we do this when we talk about inclusive teaching, but we never really measure it. But we wouldn't like say, well, we teach, you know, loops and variables and conditionals, but we never measure them. So I think holding people accountable is really where we need to be.
Yeah. Here at the Constellations Center, I've had numerous conversations with my team, with the fellows especially. They, you know, they're fantastic. They've really brought in a lot of what they've seen happening in classrooms with the work that they're doing with teachers. And we've had larger conversations about, like, how do we move forward from here on out? Because whatever our next steps are, we have to do it with intentionality to be inclusive, to be anti-racist, to be sure that you know, we are making our mission and our goals known, so more transparency, you know, and we're also trying to build partnerships that we know are on the same level as we are, because partnerships with folks that don't have the same mindset or the same mind frame, that can't happen anymore. That, you know, we all need to have the same mindset in order to dismantle, you know, the structures that are in place to eradicate racism. And so thank you both for sharing those thoughts. I also wanted to ask you, as a female colleague, you're leading female experts in the field. I'm curious as to how you perceive progress with gender parity in CS and in academia in general, really, you know, and in the tech workforce as well too. What advice would you give young women who are considering taking a CS course in high school or in college, but have reservations? You know, there's all of these stereotypes and whatnot, but you're here, right? We're having this conversation together. So what advice would you give these young women?
So I would tell them to remember that everyone struggles. Just because there's not a stereotype about a certain group struggling doesn't mean that they don't struggle. Computer science and computing in general is not something that comes naturally to people. It's gonna take persistent and effortful progress to really make it make any sort of sense. And I feel like it's not just that we need to provide role models for students who are underrepresented or from underrepresented groups in computing. I think there's another side of it, which is that the instructors or the people who are supporting people need to make more effort to see themselves in that person. Because I always, I work with a wide range of students. Some of them do not care at all about college. Some of them are really into college. And for better or worse, the ones that I connect with most are the ones that I'm like, oh, this person's struggling, but they were doing exactly what I was doing when I was in their place. And so, I think we can all, as mentors and as instructors, try a little bit harder to not just say this student's doing poorly, but say they're not there yet. I remember being in that spot, and to help support them.
I think that mentorship, or at least recognizing when young women need support and being there to offer that, is really important.
Yeah, totally agree. I love the things that Lauren pointed out, especially about recognizing that others struggle. We even have language around this, and the fact that we have language around this and phrases like imposter syndrome, and that's a known phrase, is comforting.
Yeah.
That you're not alone in experiencing and feeling that. I think I would also say that, computer science and computing in general is really exciting work. It's work that can be really impactful and solve important problems in society. I think it offers the opportunity for you to learn about lots of different disciplines as you tackle those problems. You can learn about healthcare, you can learn about finance, you can learn about ecology, and so many other disciplines as you're solving problems. I think it's also important to share with young women that you can find a community and that you can work together to solve those problems. And one more thing that I would share with them that I love about computer science is that it's really, in some ways, it's impossible to fail, right? Because you have lots of mini failures. Every time you compile and you get a compiler error, it's an opportunity to try again, and it's never sort of over. You can always keep improving and keep working to create something. So I think it brings together creativity, challenge, opportunity to solve puzzles and problems. So those are the things I might tell young women. I think Lauren also pointed out some things we should tell teachers and educators and supporters of women in computing. And I think those things are really important too. Sharing this language, understanding what young women might experience. For those of you who are educators, there has been research that shows that women believe that their performance isn't good enough. And someone with the same grade and scores in a class that is male believes they're performing exceptionally. And just really small messages that say, factually, here's where you stand in the class. You are doing great, right? Here's your score. This means that you stand in the X percentile. Those kind of messages can have a significant impact on persistence of women in computing. So share your encouragement and share with people, that they can do it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. We have some time for taking questions from the attendees, and I want to invite Brian back on the stage to help us with that. Hey, Brian. Brian's been helping to kind of keep track of some comments and questions. And Brian, I'm going to ask you to help me out here. I've been trying to keep up, but maybe you can start us off with some of the questions that have been posted.
So I think one of the early questions by Dr. Mons from Albany State is for you, Jamie. She wants to know, of the 50 colleges that have chapters with stars, how many of those colleges are HBCUs? Jamie? Can you hear me?
Hey, Jamie.
Hi.
Okay, she's back.
Sorry, can you say again?
Sure. So Dr. Mons asked, of the 50 colleges that have chapters with stars, how many of those colleges are HBCUs? Is she not hearing me, or is it just, can everybody else hear me?
Yeah,
Yes, I can hear you. Jamie, can you hear Brian?
Yeah, I can't hear Brian. I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
Okay. All right. So let me see if I can repeat the question. Kathlena was asking how many HBCUs are included in the STARS program.
So we have around 50 total institutional members, and 6 of those are HBCUs. We include Morehouse, Spelman, Hampton, Claflin University, Bowie State, and Florida A&M.
Okay.
There we go. Florida A&M is my alma mater. By the way, there are a lot of shout outs in.
There are also several new alliances that have been posed for through the HBCU Up program. Is Brian talking and am I talking over him? I'm sorry.
It's okay. No, it's okay. Keep going, Jamie.
Yeah, there are several alliances also that have been funded through the National Science Foundation's HBCU Up program, and those are really great efforts. And so I'd be happy to share information about those after this session as well.
I think you might be having some audio difficulties hearing Brian, but I think you can hear me and Lauren. Is that correct?
That's correct. I just can't hear Brian.
Sorry, we'll work on that. Next question, Brian.
Dr. Mons also wanted to know how Albany State can get involved with STARS. What would be the process for them to contact you?
What would be the process to have ASU, Albany State University, included in STARS?
Oh, we would love to have you. So we have lots of information on our website. I'm going to put some stuff in the chat box that gives some information about how you can find out more about our programs. Short and sweet, you can send me an email and we can talk about what kind you would like for your sort of partnership to look like and what your context is and what things you would be interested in building capacity for at your institution.
Excellent. So we have another question from Sally Holloway. Are your schools or others considering an undergraduate CS teacher prep program? Our district has 100+ schools and are finding a real need for this. There doesn't seem to be enough existing teachers turning to CS or people from industry to fill the needs, especially with the passage of Senate Bill 108, which requires all middle schools and high schools in Georgia to offer computer science.
I'm guessing that question's for me.
I'm guessing so too.
So in Georgia, the issue with having an undergrad pre-service teacher program for CS, it's an option. And I believe Columbus State has one right now. But the problem is, again, that the certification is P through 12. So in order to have a pre-service teacher program that prepares you for elementary, middle, and high school, that means extensive field experiences in all of those grades. And when we sketched it out, it was going to be a 5 or 6 year program, which we didn't think would be very interesting to someone. However, with the computer science endorsement that we offer, that's an add-on. Someone can go through a pre-service teacher class, take the 4 extra courses that we offer through the endorsement, and then they'll have both of those subject areas for one particular grade, because their initial endorsement will be only for elementary, middle, or high.
I wanted to know your thoughts, just quickly. What are your thoughts about the differences between an endorsement program and having teachers just take the exam, or your thoughts about maybe having them do both or just one? What do you think about those options, Lauren?
When I first started putting together the endorsement program, I assumed they would have to take the exam as well. But it turns out that the process of getting certified is rigorous enough that they don't have to. I think the exam is great for people who have, because the requirement to have a certification in CS is pretty new in Georgia. So for the people who have already been teaching it, or they already have a lot of background knowledge, I think the exam is fine because they have that teaching experience otherwise. But if you're not, like, if you don't know that much about computer science or how to teach it, then sort of just preparing to take the test like you would take the SAT, because the test is really, it's sort of like an AP CSA exam. So it's not really testing what you would teach for elementary or for middle. And so I think it just serves entirely different populations, the endorsement program and the test. Gotcha.
Brian, I think we have maybe time for one more question that came in from Diane. She's asking if you can share advice you give to young faculty about explicitly broadening participation.
So I have a few responses for young faculty. I think first, departments should support new faculty and becoming educated about inclusive pedagogy. I think that every day you're interacting with students, and if you are not employing those best practices and inclusive and culturally responsive teaching, you're missing a huge opportunity to have an impact on the students in your department. I think too, going beyond just your teaching role, when you are a junior faculty, there are often pressures to not get involved in what is often viewed as service. But there are ways to balance your participation and broadening participation in computing efforts that align with priorities in your department, and also getting engaged with existing efforts is one way to make broadening participation in computing feasible for junior faculty and to provide them with the resources to do it. There are excellent evidence-based approaches and programs that exist. If you participate in an existing effort, you don't have to build everything from scratch. And when you participate in existing efforts and partner with existing programs like NC-WIT Aspirations in Computing, or ESAP, or STARS, or CS for All even, that brings more visibility to your efforts within the department. More people see it as desirable to join, so you can have an impact among your faculty and get more people sort of to join you in those efforts. And it provides you with a national community and support and resources around the work that you're doing. So I would say don't start from scratch. Connect with existing programs and resources, and try to bring other faculty along with you.
It is a cultural shift, even at the college and university level, to really be aligned with what broadening participation really is about. You know, and the more people you can bring into the fold, you're right, the better. Well, I think that's all the time that we have. If there are any outstanding questions that we weren't able to get to, again, you can send those to me, or send a direct message via chat to myself or Lauren or Jamie, and we'll try to get to them as soon as we can. I just want to thank Lauren and Jamie again for being here with us this morning. We are super grateful that you've taken the time to speak with us, and our participants. Thank you so much for all the great work that you do, and for standing up for equity in CS, and for everything else that you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lynn. Thanks, Brian.
All right, so we are going to take a quick break, and then for the participants, sessions will start at 10 a.m. We'll see you there. Thank you.